The council chamber was filled with representatives from 200 species. Beings of all shapes and sizes sat in their assigned seats. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some floated in liquid tanks. Ambassador Hana stood at the human delegation's small platform, watching the chaos unfold on the massive display screen. The Valorian homeworld was burning. Ships with dark hulls and red markings filled the sky above Valoria Prime. The Kreth Dominion had finally made its move. For decades, they had conquered system after system. Now they wanted the gentle Valorians and their rich, peaceful world. Hannah watched the footage with cold anger in her heart. Valorian cities crumbled under orbital bombardment. The six-limbed creatures that looked like glowing deer ran through the streets, trying to save their children. Their screams needed no translation. "We must vote," the council speaker announced. It was a massive creature that looked like a floating jellyfish. The Valorians request military aid. All in favor? Silence filled the chamber. One by one, species abstained or voted no. The Kreth were too strong. The risk was too great. Better to let one species die than to anger the Dominion. Hannah watched as civilization after civilization abandoned the Valorians to their fate. She thought about history. 200 years ago, humanity had been nothing. Their first colony ships had primitive engines that barely worked. They got lost in deep space. Their food ran out. Their water recyclers failed. Thousands of humans drifted in the void, sending distress signals that no one answered. No one except the Valorians. A small Valorian rescue fleet had found them. The Valorians had limited resources themselves. They were not a rich species, but they shared everything they had: food, water, medicine, star maps, technology. They guided humanity to safe worlds. They taught them how to survive in the galaxy. When the human captain had asked how they could repay this kindness, the Valorian elder had simply touched her face gently with one of his 6 limbs. "Kindness needs no contract," he had said. "We help because helping is right." Now those same Valorians were dying and the galaxy was doing nothing. The vote ended. 112 species abstained. 86 voted no. 2 voted yes. Humanity was one of them. "The motion fails," the speaker announced. "The council will not intervene." Hannah stood up. Every eye and sensor in the chamber turned to her. "Humanity will intervene," she said simply. Laughter echoed from several delegations. The Kreth ambassador, a tall reptilian creature with 4 arms, smiled with too many teeth. "Little humans," he said, "you have been in space for 3 centuries. We have been conquering for 3,000 years. Your fleet is small. Your worlds are few. What can you possibly do?" Hannah looked at him with an expression that made his smile fade slightly. "We remember," she said. "That is what we can do." She walked out of the chamber without another word. In her private quarters, Hannah opened a secure channel to Earth. Admiral Tyke's weathered face appeared on the screen. He was an old soldier with gray hair and scars from conflicts most humans had forgotten. His eyes were tired but sharp. "I watched the vote," he said before she could speak. "They abandoned them," Hannah said. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. "I know. The Valorians saved us, Tyke, when we were nothing. When we were dying. They gave us everything. I know." Hannah took a deep breath. "Can we win?" Admiral Tyke was quiet for a long moment. "The Kreth outnumber us 3-1. They have better ships, more experience, more resources. That is not what I asked." Tyke's lips curved into something that was not quite a smile. "We are human, Hannah. We have never fought wars we expected to win. We fight wars that need to be fought. Then we go alone. We go alone." Tyke cut the connection and turned to his command staff. Young officers and old veterans alike looked at him, waiting. "Send the signal," Tyke ordered. "All channels. All frequencies. Every ship. Every station. Every colony." "Sir, I mean everything. Full mobilization. The Valorians are dying, and we owe them our existence. Call every captain. Wake every soldier. Activate every reserve unit. The United Fleet moves in 48 hours. The signal went out across human space. It reached Earth, where billions looked up at the night sky and knew their children were going to war. It reached Mars, where factory workers began working double shifts. It reached the colony worlds, where young men and women lined up at recruitment stations. It reached ships in deep space, where captains turned their vessels toward the rally point without hesitation. Captain Una received the signal on her diplomatic vessel, the Horizon's Edge. She read the message twice. Then she walked to her bridge and looked at her crew. "You have all heard the news," she said. "The Valorians are under attack. The galaxy has abandoned them. Humanity has not." She paused. "I will not order anyone to come with me. This is not that kind of mission. If you wish to stay behind, I will understand." No one moved. Her pilot, a young woman named Somi, spoke first. "My grandmother was on the colony ships," she said. "The ones the Valorians saved. I exist because of them. Where else would I be, Captain?" One by one, every crew member nodded. Una felt her heart swell with something fierce and proud. Set course for the rally point. Maximum speed. Across human space, the same scene repeated itself 1,000 times. On every ship, in every station, humans prepared for war. They wrote letters to their families. They checked their weapons. They said their prayers. The Kreth had no idea what was coming. The galaxy had dismissed humanity as a minor species, too young and too small to matter. They were about to learn that they had made a terrible mistake. Humans never forgot kindness, and they never left debts unpaid. The fleet was assembling. The debt would be repaid. The galaxy watched with confusion as human ships began to move. Intelligence officers from a dozen species tracked the movement patterns. At first they assumed it was a defensive action. Perhaps the humans were afraid the Kreth would attack them next. Perhaps they were moving their fleet to protect their colonies. Then the numbers became clear. "This cannot be right," the intelligence chief of the Meladrin Empire said, staring at his screens. "They are not sending a task force. They are sending everything." It was true. Every human warship was moving toward a single point in space. Carriers the size of small moons. Battleships bristling with weapons. Cruisers, destroyers, frigates. Support ships carrying supplies for a long campaign. Troop transports filled with soldiers. The human fleet had never been impressive by galactic standards. Other species had thousands of ships. Humanity had hundreds. But those hundreds were now moving with a unity of purpose that made observers uneasy. On the massive carrier Sol's Fury, Lieutenant Dohan sat in the pilot-ready room with 200 other fighter pilots. They were young. Most had never seen real combat, but their eyes held no fear. "You all know why we are here," their commander said. She was a woman with short gray hair and a calm voice. "The Valorians are under attack. 200 years ago they saved our ancestors. Now we save them. It is that simple." Doan thought about his family. His mother still lived on Earth, in a small house near the sea. His father had died when he was young. He had written them both letters before boarding the carrier. The letter to his father would be burned at his grave. A silly tradition, perhaps, but it brought comfort. "The Kreth outnumber us," the commander continued. "They have more experience, more ships, better technology." She paused and smiled slightly. "At least they think they have better technology." This got everyone's attention. For 2 centuries, humanity has been quiet. We took the gifts other species gave us. Star maps, engine designs, weapon systems, and we improved them. In secret, in silence. We are not the helpless children we were 200 years ago. She pressed a button, and the display screen lit up with technical specifications. Gravity lances. Quantum disruption torpedoes, adaptive shield matrices, phase shift missiles. She looked at her pilots with something like pride. The Kreth have never faced weapons like these. No one has, because we have never used them. Until now. Doan stared at the specifications. The weapons were terrifying. Gravity lances could tear a ship apart by creating conflicting gravitational fields inside its hull. Quantum torpedoes could ignore shields entirely. The Kreth had no defense against weapons they did not know existed. "We are not going to Valoria to die," the commander said. "We are going to Valoria to win. And when we are done, the galaxy will never look at humanity the same way again." Meanwhile, on Titan Research Station, Dr. Murray was overseeing the final preparations. She was a small woman with tired eyes and quick hands. She had spent 30 years designing weapons that she hoped would never be used. Now they would be used. "Protocol Omega is ready," her assistant reported. He was a nervous young man who kept checking his readings. "Good," Murray said. She did not feel good. Protocol Omega was her darkest creation. A weapon so terrible that she had begged the military to destroy the plans. They had refused. "Dr. Murray," her assistant said quietly, "do you think we will need it?" She looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Kreth were killing innocent Valorians. Somewhere out there, human soldiers were preparing to fight and die. "I hope not," she said. "But if we do, we will use it. That is what it means to protect those we love." The fleet assembled at the rally point over 3 days. Ships arrived in waves, emerging from faster-than-light travel with flashes of blue light. Admiral Tyke watched from his flagship, the Earth's memory, as his fleet grew larger by the hour. "Final count, sir," his aide reported. 847 warships, 200 support vessels, 50 troop transports carrying 2 million soldiers. All of them volunteers? "Every single one, sir." Tyke nodded slowly. No one had been ordered to come. This was not a war for territory or resources. This was a war of honor, a war of memory, and every human who had come had done so by choice. "Sir," his communications officer said, "the Kreth have sent a response to your warning. Put it on screen." The Kreth fleet commander appeared. He was a massive reptilian creature with scarred scales and cruel eyes. Behind him, Tyke could see the bridge of a Kreth dreadnought, filled with officers who were laughing. "Little humans," the commander said. "I received your message. I found it amusing. Do you know how many species have threatened Kreth dominion? Do you know how many of them still exist?" "I know exactly how many," Tyke replied calmly. "Then you know what will happen to you. Go home, little ones. Protect your tiny worlds. The Valorians belong to us now." "No," Tyke said. "They do not." The Kreth commander's smile faded slightly. "You cannot win this war. Your fleet is small. Your species is young. You are outnumbered and outmatched." Admiral Tyke leaned forward. His voice was quiet but carried the weight of 2 centuries of debt. "We are human," he said. "We do not fight wars because we can win them. We fight wars because they are right. The Valorians saved us when we were dying. Every human alive today exists because of their kindness. And now you threaten them." He paused. "You have made a terrible mistake. We will destroy you." "You can try. But let me tell you something about humans, Commander. We remember. We remember every kindness. We remember every wrong. And we never stop. We never surrender. We never give up." Tyke's eyes were cold. "You should have left the Valorians alone." The transmission ended. Tyke turned to his fleet. 847 ships. 2 million soldiers. Every single one ready to die for a species that had shown them kindness 200 years ago. "All ships," he ordered. "Jump to Valorian space. The debt is about to be paid." The fleet vanished into faster-than-light travel, leaving only empty space behind. The galaxy held its breath. The humans were coming. The human fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Valorian space. For a moment, everything was silent. Then sensors began screaming warnings. The Kreth fleet was massive. Over 2,000 warships formed a wall of metal and fire. Around Valoria Prime, dreadnoughts the size of cities anchored the formation. Carriers launched endless waves of fighters. The Kreth had brought everything they had. Commodore Sujin stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Iron Dawn, and studied the enemy formation. She was a small woman with calm eyes and a reputation for brilliance. Other officers called her the Ghost because her tactics were impossible to predict. "They outnumber us more than 2-1, her tactical officer reported. "I can count," Sujin replied. "Launch all fighters. Tell the vanguard to form up on my position." "Commodore, standard tactics would suggest we hold back, and standard tactics are why other species lose to the Kreth." Sujin looked at her crew. "We are not here to fight a standard battle. We are here to win. All ships, maximum acceleration. We go straight through the center." The Kreth commander watched the human fleet charge directly at his formation. He laughed. Every species that had faced the Dominion had tried to fight defensively, preserving their ships, hoping to survive. This was the first time anyone had attacked head-on. "Foolish," he said. "They are throwing their lives away. All ships, engage." The two fleets collided, and the Battle of Valoria Prime began. Lieutenant Dohan launched from the Soul's Fury in his fighter, surrounded by 200 wingmates. The space around him filled with weapons fire. Kreth fighters swarmed toward them, their red markings glowing like angry eyes. "Stay in formation," his squadron leader ordered. "Target their carriers first." Dohan dove into the chaos. A Kreth fighter crossed his path, and he fired without thinking. The enemy ship exploded. Another took its place. And another. The sky was full of enemies. But something strange was happening. The Kreth were dying faster than they should. Human weapons tore through Kreth shields like they were not there. Gravity lances ripped enemy ships apart from the inside. Quantum torpedoes appeared inside Kreth hulls and detonated before anyone could react. The technology gap that the Kreth had expected did not exist. On his flagship, the Kreth commander stopped laughing. His tactical displays were chaos. Ships were dying. His formation was breaking apart. The humans fought like nothing he had ever seen. "They are not retreating," one of his officers reported, fear in his voice. "Their damaged ships are not withdrawing. They are accelerating into our lines. That is suicide." "Yes, Commander." "They know. A human cruiser, burning and dying, aimed itself at a Kreth carrier and went to full speed. The Kreth tried to destroy it, but the cruiser held together just long enough. The collision destroyed both ships. Across the battlefield, the same thing happened again and again. Human ships that could no longer fight became weapons themselves. Pilots who were going to die anyway made their deaths count. The Kreth had never faced an enemy like this. Every species they had conquered had valued survival above all else. Humans did not. Humans fought like they had nothing to lose, like death was just another tool to be used. While the space battle raged, General Jinho led the ground assault. 50 troop transports broke through the Kreth orbital defenses and descended to Valoria Prime. The landing was brutal. 12 transports were destroyed before reaching the ground. But 38 made it through. 2 million soldiers became 1.5 million. They did not hesitate. They did not mourn. They had a job to do. Sergeant Bile led her unit through the burning streets of a Valorian city. The Kreth had already conquered this area. Valorian civilians huddled in ruined buildings, too afraid to move. When they saw human soldiers, they did not understand. Why were the humans here? What did they want? "Secure the civilians," Bile ordered. "Get them to the evacuation points." A young Valorian, barely more than a child, looked up at her with huge, luminous eyes. "Why?" he asked in broken human language. "Why help us?" Bile knelt down to his level. "Because you helped us first. A long time ago. We do not forget." Her unit moved deeper into the city. They found the Kreth extermination camp at sunset. Bile had seen terrible things in her training simulations. She thought she was prepared for war. She was not prepared for this. Valorian bodies piled like garbage. Survivors barely alive, their glow fading. Children separated from parents, crying in cages. Something changed in Bile. Something changed in every human soldier who saw that camp. No prisoners, she said quietly. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were not. No mercy. Kill them all. The Kreth guards died screaming. In orbit, Commodore Sojin executed her master plan. She had sacrificed an entire carrier group, letting them be destroyed while drawing the Kreth flagship out of position. The Kreth commander, sensing victory, had pushed forward to finish them off. He did not see the gravity lance satellites hidden in the debris field. He did not see Sojin's reserve force waiting behind the moon. He did not see the trap until it was too late. The Kreth flagship died in seconds. One moment it was the largest, most powerful ship in the system. The next moment it was a cloud of expanding metal and fire. The Kreth commander did not even have time to understand what had happened. With their flagship destroyed, the Kreth formation collapsed. Ships began retreating. The humans pursued without mercy, destroying every enemy vessel that could not escape fast enough. On the surface of Valoria Prime, Elder Lumina emerged from the shelter where her people had been hiding for days. She was old, even by Valorian standards, and her glow was weak. But she needed to see. Human soldiers stood guard around the shelter. They were covered in dirt and blood and exhaustion. But they were smiling. And some of them were crying. "The children," one soldier said, his voice breaking. "The children are safe. We got them out." Elder Lumina looked at these strange, violent, beautiful creatures who had come across the galaxy to save her people. She remembered the stories her grandmother had told her. Stories about lost humans drifting in space. Stories about a decision to help strangers who had nothing to offer in return. "You came?" she whispered. Admiral Tyke's voice came over all channels. "All ships pursue the enemy fleet. This is not over. They can never threaten anyone again. Not the Valorians? Not anyone." The Battle of Valoria Prime was won, but the war was just beginning. And the galaxy was about to learn what happened when humans decided to finish a fight. Reports came in every hour, each one more unbelievable than the last. The humans had won at Valoria Prime. The Kreth fleet was in retreat. And instead of stopping, instead of negotiating, instead of going home, the humans were chasing them. "This is against all rules of civilized warfare," the Meladrin ambassador shouted. "Wars end when one side retreats. You negotiate terms, you return to your borders. You do not hunt your enemy across the galaxy." No one had an answer, because no one understood what the humans were doing. Captain Yuna led the pursuit fleet from her ship, the Horizon's Edge. She had started this journey as a diplomatic vessel commander. Now she commanded 30 warships and had more kills than most career military officers. "New contact," her sensor officer reported. "Kreth supply convoy, 12 ships. They are trying to reach the Dominion border." "Intercept them," Yuna ordered. "Destroy the military vessels. Let the civilian transports go." "Captain, how do you know which are civilian?" "The ones that surrender." Yuna's voice was cold. "The ones that do not are military. Act accordingly." This was the human way of war. They did not kill civilians. They did not bomb cities. They did not commit the atrocities that the Kreth had committed. But every Kreth soldier, every Kreth warship, every Kreth military installation was a target. And humans did not stop hunting until the target was destroyed. Intelligence Officer Yunji worked around the clock, intercepting Kreth communications. She was a quiet woman who rarely spoke, but she understood the Kreth language better than any other human. What she heard in their transmissions was something new: fear. "They are calling us demons," Yunji reported to Captain Yuna. "Their soldiers refuse to fight. Their officers are being executed for cowardice. They have never experienced this before. They have never been the prey before," Yuna said. "Captain, some of our officers are concerned. They say we are becoming like the Kreth, that we are becoming monsters." Yuna was quiet for a long moment. She thought about the extermination camps on Valoria Prime. She thought about the Valorian children in cages. She thought about what the Kreth would do to the next species they decided to conquer. "Monsters do not let civilian ships go," she finally said. Monsters do not protect the innocent. We are not becoming like the Kreth. We are making sure there are no more Kreth to threaten anyone ever again. There is a difference. Across the galaxy, other species watched in silence. The Kreth Dominion had terrorized this region of space for 3,000 years. They had conquered 40 species. They had destroyed civilizations. Everyone had assumed they were unstoppable. Now the unstoppable empire was running, and the humans were right behind them. Admiral Tyke addressed the fleet from his flagship. His face was tired, but his voice was strong. "I know some of you have doubts," he said. "I know some of you think we have gone too far. So let me explain something." He paused. "The Kreth do not change. They do not learn. They do not feel mercy. If we defeat them and go home, they will rebuild. In 50 years, maybe 100, they will attack someone else. Some other peaceful species will suffer what the Valorians suffered." He leaned forward. "We are not doing this for revenge. We are doing this so it never happens again. So no more children die in camps. So no more worlds burn. The Kreth military ends today. Not next year. Not next century. Today." The fleet continued its pursuit. The High Sovereign of the Kreth Dominion sat on his throne and watched his empire crumble. He was ancient by Kreth standards, a creature of scales and scars and cruelty. He had ruled for 200 years. He had overseen the conquest of 12 species. He had never known fear. Now he knew it. "Your sovereignty," his advisor said, bowing low. "We have lost contact with the 7th Fleet. The humans destroyed them at the Nexus Station. The 7th Fleet had 200 ships. Yes, your sovereignty. The humans lost 40. They did not stop." The High Sovereign closed his 4 eyes. His empire was dying. His fleets were scattered. His people, who had only ever known victory, were learning what defeat felt like. He made a decision that no Kreth ruler had ever made. He opened a communication channel to the human fleet. "I wish to surrender," he said. Captain Yuna's face appeared on his screen. She was young by Kreth standards, small, fragile-looking, but her eyes held something that made the ancient ruler's scales shiver. "Surrender is accepted," she said. "These are our terms. You will disband your entire military. Every warship will be destroyed. Every shipyard will be demolished. Every weapons factory will be melted down. You will keep only enough ships to defend your homeworld from pirates. Nothing more. That is not surrender. That is the end of our civilization. Your civilization conquered and killed for 3,000 years. Your civilization built extermination camps. Your civilization threatened the Valorians." Yuna's voice did not change. "Your military civilization ends today. Your people can live in peace. That is more mercy than you ever showed anyone else. And if we refuse, then we continue hunting. And in 1 year, there will be no Kreth military left anyway. This way, fewer people die. Yours and ours." The High Sovereign stared at this small human who spoke to him without fear. He remembered the reports from the Battle of Valoria Prime. Human ships that rammed instead of retreating. Human pilots who aimed their dying fighters at enemy bridges. Human soldiers who cleared extermination camps with cold fury. He understood, finally, what kind of species he had made an enemy of. "We accept your terms," he said. The war was over, but the galaxy would never be the same. Because everyone had seen what happened when humans decided to repay a debt. And everyone was now asking themselves the same question. What would happen if humans decided they were owed something? Human ships took positions around every Kreth military installation. They watched as shipyards were destroyed. They watched as weapons were melted. They watched as the greatest military power in the quadrant was dismantled piece by piece. Captain Yuna stood on her bridge and watched the final Kreth dreadnought be cut apart for scrap. Her crew was silent. There was no celebration, no cheering, just quiet satisfaction. "It is done," her first officer said. "No," Yuna replied. "It is just beginning. The galaxy is watching. They will remember this. They will remember what humans do for their friends. She turned to face her crew. And they will remember what humans do to their enemies. The human fleet returned home in waves. Ships that had been shining and new now carried scars from 100 battles. Crews that had left as strangers returned as family. They had seen things together that no one else could understand. On Earth, billions watched the sky as the first ships entered orbit. There were no parades, no celebrations, just quiet gratitude. Families reunited. Parents held children they thought they would never see again. Lovers embraced after a year of fear and waiting. But not everyone came home. Memorial walls were built on every human world. Names were carved into black stone. Hundreds of thousands of names. Soldiers, pilots, engineers, medics. They had volunteered for a war they might not survive, and many of them had not. Admiral Tyke stood before the main memorial on Earth. It was a massive wall that stretched for kilometers, covered in names. He was retiring today. His war was over. But he would carry these names with him forever. They died for strangers, a reporter said, her voice quiet. The Valorians were not human. Why did so many volunteer? Tyke was silent for a long moment. Because the Valorians saved us when we were strangers too. Because kindness should not be forgotten. Because being human means remembering who helped you when you had nothing. On Valoria Prime, the reconstruction had begun. Human engineers worked alongside Valorian builders. Cities that had been destroyed were being rebuilt. Farms that had been burned were being replanted. The Valorian people, who had faced extinction, were slowly healing. A garden was planted outside the capital city. It was filled with flowers from both Earth and Valoria, a place where the two species could remember what they had shared, what they had sacrificed, what they had survived. Elder Lumina visited the garden every day. She was old and tired, but she insisted on making the journey. One morning, she found a human man sitting on a bench, staring at the flowers. He was old too, with gray hair and a weathered face. She recognized him from the news reports. "Admiral Tyke," she said, her voice soft. He looked up and smiled sadly. "Just Tyke now. I retired." She sat beside him on the bench. For a while, neither spoke. They just watched the flowers sway in the gentle breeze. 200 years ago, Lumina finally said, "My grandmother was on the rescue ship that found your people. She told me the story many times. Your ships were dying. Your people were starving. And no one would help, except the Valorians, except us." She turned to look at him. Her large eyes held 1,000 years of wisdom. "My grandmother asked for nothing in return. She said kindness was its own reward. She never expected anything back." Tyke's voice was thick. "We never forgot. Every human child learns the story. The Valorians who saved us. The debt we owed. It was not a debt. It was a gift. To us, it was both." Tyke wiped his eyes. "And now the gift has been returned." A small Valorian child approached them. She was young, her glow bright and curious. She held a flower in her 6-limbed grasp. She looked at Tyke with wonder. "Are you a human?" she asked. "I am. My mother says humans came from far away to help us. She says you fought the bad ones who hurt us. We did." The child offered him the flower. "Thank you for saving us." Tyke took the flower gently. His hands were shaking. This was why they had fought. This was why so many had died. For this child. For her future. For a galaxy where kindness was remembered and debts were repaid. "Thank you for saving us first," he whispered. Far away, in the great halls of the Galactic Council, everything had changed. Ambassador Hana walked through the corridors, and species that had once ignored her now stepped aside. Eyes and sensors followed her everywhere. Conversations stopped when she approached. The galaxy was afraid of humanity now. She addressed the council in the same chamber where they had abandoned the Valorians 1 year ago. "I know what you are thinking," she said. Her voice was calm and carried to every corner of the massive room. "You are thinking about what we did. How we destroyed the Kreth military. how we hunted them across the galaxy, how we showed no mercy to their soldiers. No one spoke. No one moved. You are afraid. You are wondering what we will do next. If we will turn our weapons on you. If we will conquer and destroy like the Kreth did. She paused and looked around the chamber. 200 species. Thousands of representatives. All of them watching her with fear in their hearts. Let me tell you about humanity. We did not come to space to conquer. We came to find friends. We came to explore. We came to trade and learn and grow together. Her voice hardened. The Valorians were our first true friends. They showed us kindness when no one else would. And when they were threatened, we protected them. Not for territory. Not for resources. Not for power. We protected them because they were our friends. She stepped forward. This is our promise to the galaxy. Be kind and we will be kind. Help those who need help. Protect those who cannot protect themselves. And we will stand beside you. We will be your friends. Her eyes swept across the chamber. But harm our friends. Threaten the innocent. Build extermination camps and burn peaceful worlds. Her voice was soft now, but somehow more terrifying for it. And we will remember. We will always remember. And we will come for you. Not with armies seeking conquest, but with a fury you cannot imagine. Because humans never forget kindness. And we never forget cruelty. The chamber was silent. We did not ask to be feared, Hannah finished. But if fear is what keeps the peace, then so be it. The galaxy saw what we did for our friends. Remember it. And choose wisely who you want to be. She walked out of the chamber without looking back. In the months that followed, everything changed. Trade deals that had cheated humanity for centuries were renegotiated fairly. Diplomatic requests were answered promptly. Species that had dismissed humans as irrelevant began treating them as equals. Some called it fear. Humans called it understanding. On a quiet evening, Captain Una visited the memorial garden on Valoria Prime. She had retired from the military. She could not fight anymore. Not because she was injured, but because she had seen too much. Done too much. She needed time to remember who she was before the war. She found Elder Lumina tending to the flowers. You are the captain, Lumina said without looking up. The one who accepted the Kreth's surrender. I was a captain. Now I am just Una. Lumina smiled. That is what Admiral Tyke said too. She stood slowly, her old joints creaking. Thank you, just Una, for everything your people did. Una shook her head. We were just repaying what we owed. You owed nothing. What my ancestors did, they did freely, without expectation. That is why we had to repay it. Una looked at the flowers, at the names carved into memorial stones. Because real kindness, the kind that expects nothing back, is the most precious thing in the universe. It deserves to be honored. It deserves to be remembered. It deserves to be repaid 1,000 times over. Elder Lumina took Una's hand gently in her six-limbed grasp. Then perhaps it is the real lesson, she said. Not that humans are dangerous. Not that you are to be feared. But that kindness, even small kindness, even kindness to strangers, matters. It echoes through time. It changes the universe. Una squeezed her hand back. The galaxy shook in fear when we repaid our debt, she said. But maybe in time they will understand. It was never about fear. It was about love. It was about loyalty. It was about remembering who helped us when we were nothing. She looked up at the stars. Humans remember. We always remember. And that, more than our weapons, more than our ships, more than our fury, is what makes us who we are. The sun set over the garden. Two species, bound by kindness given and kindness returned, watched the stars come out together. And somewhere in the galaxy, beings who had never thought about kindness before began to think about it now. Because they had seen what happened when one species repaid its debt. The galaxy had shaken in fear. But perhaps in time it would learn to shake with hope instead.